Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris Garner, joined today with Naomi to give
Hiya.
my review on Bohemian Rhapsody, which is the latest biographical film.
Mama.
Yeah, I was in two minds whether to open the review with like "Ayo" and get like a sing along with people in the comments, but we only have Dave in the comments at the moment, unless he wants to pick up the reins with
Hi,
that one.
Dave.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, so this is the biographical movie based on the British rock band Queen, and kind of more or less focuses almost exclusively on Freddie Mercury throughout the most part of the film. It's kind of directed by Bryan Singer, but not really. He directed about 2/3 of it, apparently. And then Dexter Fletcher, the director of Eddie the Eagle and the upcoming released Rocket Man from next year, he picked up the mantle and he got the movie made. I realised that I'm wearing these. I'm not going to wear them for the whole review. I'm just going to take these off now. My eyes are going to adjust, and I'm going to realise that I'm less Freddie Mercury with this moustache and probably more Ned Flanders. Yeah, it was my one opportunity to grow a moustache for the review, like to have one, and it's Freddie Mercury, so why not? So that's why I'm kind of looking rather yeah, yes. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Yeah, creepy. Yeah, slightly unsettling. I'm just maybe it'll be like Mustache Gate, like Justice League, and then I can get like this whole part digitally erased and get like a chin double. Who knows?
Chin double. Ugh.
But yes, so with a biographical film, it's very, very difficult to like have like a spoiler warning or anything like that, because obviously, well, I hope most people know the story of Freddie Mercury. And
Spoiler warning. Life.
yes, it's not a happy ending. I will say that the movie kind of is, but ultimately, obviously, where it leads, it isn't. I will, however, go spoiler free for the first half of the review, and I'll let you guys know when I get to spoilers. Although, as I said, as it's a biographical movie, you may as well just listen to my review from the off. So again, I've seen this movie. Naomi, you haven't seen this movie, but you've seen trailers. You know about Queen. You're a Queen fan, so you can easily throw questions at me.
I've been listening to Queen since like I was a really tiny person,
Yeah.
and that was my first venture into rock. Speaking of rocks, but I mean, like classic albums like Night at the Opera, News of the World, Jazz, which is just an absolute farce. They're just absolutely classic to me, and I can't think of a better band that I am envious of that my father has seen than Queen, because you've got John Deacon's classic like bass lines. I mean, seriously, and Another One Bites the Dust, and Under Pressure.
Yes,
yeah. You've got Roger Taylor just with his amount of like percussion work, especially in something like Who Wants to Live Forever. You've got Brian May, absolute classic, and person of my heart when it comes to like being able to do guitar solos. He's a real guitar hero. And then you have Freddie Mercury, who has that virtuoso voice that like goes above and beyond when it comes to like vocal range and like vocal acrobatics. It's that kind of fantastic mixture of everything that really makes Queen. So what they do with this film, I'm kind of intrigued, but also terrified.
Yes. So if I'm going to go to my history with Queen, I don't know all the history and ins and outs of the bands, and how many different makes of guitars Brian May's had and all that crazy stuff. Like I don't follow
during the national anthem on top of Buckingham Palace in 2002.
But yeah, no. Like with most bands, like obviously, like I'm a music fan, like I love rock, hard rock, heavy metal, all that good stuff, especially 80s. So that's my favorite decade, well, favorite movement of Queen's music was definitely the 80s stuff. Although I know a lot of people prefer their earlier few albums when they're really experimental and, completely balls to the wall. But I don't know all the ins and outs of Queen. Like I know the main things, obviously, regarding Freddie Mercury, and that was honestly about it. So going into this movie, I knew that the movie was going to touch on a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, and take me on this journey showing the band with how they're starting off. And I guess I should say this as well, the movie covers from the moment they form and kind of caps off at the Live Aid performance, their performance at Live Aid on stage. But yeah, so it was very difficult for me going into this movie, because I was a Queen fan and I actually did a reaction video to the first trailer that came out for it, and I got a lot of people differing with my opinion on that. A little bit about the production, because the production of this film was incredibly troubled. I think they first started announcing ideas for a Queen movie around 2010. I'm just reading here on
It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
tried to get Sacha Baron Cohen as Freddie Mercury, but he turned it down due to not liking the script. So
well, no, he was on board for it. Like, he was going to give it his all. He was set to play Freddie Mercury, and I'm just looking here. The screenwriter was going to be Peter Morgan, who wrote Frost Nixon and The Queen. He's an award-winning biopic films. And from the tone of those films, obviously they're very serious adult film. I mean, especially like Frost Nixon, for example. Like, for the love of God, like if you're gonna get a writer for that and put it to a Freddie Mercury Queen movie, you can imagine what that's going to be like. And apparently, Cohen really approved the idea of pushing it in a more adult direction. No holds barred, showing the very true, real life debauchery side of Freddie Mercury, the real private life of everything that he got up to, and telling the true life story of it, really. And then he eventually left the project when Brian May and the rest of Queen were pushing for a more family-friendly approach, more of a celebration of Queen. They acknowledged that Freddie Mercury was always very private about his personal life, and they wanted to honor that, so therefore they didn't want to paint his legacy in any kind of negative light. I get both sides of it, but part of me, and I guess this is where I'm going to get into my review now, is that I do wish we could have seen that true life story of Queen. There's a lot of liberties that are taken with this movie in terms of the narrative, in terms of when certain events happen, in order to gauge more of an emotional reaction out of the audience. So it is very manipulative in that regard. And you do get a sense of, I will say though, I really enjoyed the movie. Like, it is a very good, like they nailed that if that's what they wanted. It is a very feel good jukebox musical approach almost to Queen. If you like Queen's music, it's all over this movie. It's almost like you are watching extended music videos throughout the movie, almost like a greatest hits of Queen, with little splices of film in between to piece it all together. But yeah, you do get the impression sometimes watching the movie that what you're watching is very disingenuous, that they're not telling you the real story, they're glossing over things, they're missing things out entirely. And I mean, it is a 12A. It is very tame when you do see the moments in the film. And it does touch on it. Like, there are moments where Freddie Mercury is throwing these very elaborate parties. They hint at the, like the orgies, the cocaine, the substance abuse, everything like that. They do hint to all of that. But it's in a very restricted 12A fashion. And I can only imagine that if, Baron Cohen was doing this thing with the writer Peter Morgan, for example, they would push it more to that 15 to 18 certificate. So it's a movie in two halves, really. If you're going into this wanting the true life story of Freddie Mercury, you're probably not going to get it. You're going to get a very glossy, shine, dialed back version, diluted version of the story. Whereas if you're just looking for a good time with Queen music, a great performance actually from Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury, and indeed the rest of the bands, every performance in this movie is great, then you're going to get exactly that. It's a good time at the movie theater with some good music to it, but there is that underlying idea of what it could have been, essentially.
Oh boy.
Doesn't that sound good to you, or are
well, you know me, I don't like jukebox musicals.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I've said my piece about Rock of Ages enough.
Yeah. Well, actually, like, in terms of like Rock of Ages, it is very, I won't say it's similar in that regard, because that is a musical, whereas this has just a lot of music in it, which it kind of needs to have.
Well, obviously, the reviews that I've seen for it, often they talk about how it's going like a by numbers rock film, or like at least some kind of musician film, where it's like someone out of nowhere suddenly rises and falls and then rises again just in time for the closing credits. And it goes through like bands having all these arguments about the direction they should go through, and having like all these people that inspire them. Does it kind of fall under that kind of cliche in a way?
It does get a little bit preachy with the Queen Freddie Mercury hype, you're a legend, Fred, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. It is kind of very much textbook. I think the writing for this movie let it down a little bit, because it does get very, very self-indulgent, and I don't know how much Brian May had an input with the script and said, like, oh, kind of big us up a little bit more, get us it, to a more of a celebration kind of thing. Yeah, so it's kind of awkward in that regard. And I feel like I'm being really negative towards the movie. And I actually really enjoyed the movie. I had a good time with it. But when you do strip it back, you know, there are a lot of inconsistencies in there. For example, I can't even say spoilers for this because it's just what happened with Queen. The ultimate culmination at the end of the movie is the Live Aid performance. That's the big central focal point at the ending. And they do play the entire 20-minute set from the actual Live Aid, which I actually really liked. But they diagnosed Freddie Mercury with AIDS 2 years before he actually got it in real life. So in the context of this movie, he's diagnosed with AIDS before the Live Aid performance. So when he tells the band, you know, I haven't got long to live, I've got AIDS, and then they play the Live Aid concert, it almost feels like a farewell concert in a way, with like the whole band together, when in actual fact he wasn't diagnosed until 2 years after the date that they diagnosed him with in this movie. So there's moments like that when you look at that. And I mean, I didn't even know that. Like, I read that like about, you know, just like before hitting record. And I was like, that's kind of dodgy to do that. But then I think to like other like biographical movies and stuff like that, or historical movies that have played very fast and loose with real life history, completely different genre of film, but, you know, based on a real life person, real life event. Braveheart, Mel Gibson, absolutely love that movie. It's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I think it's an absolutely perfect movie. But if you're looking for actual historical context and based on real history, it took loads of liberties and changed things and added completely fictitious things in that never happened. But it's still a good movie. So you kind of have to rate it on a movie, you know, with its own merits. Like, does it work as a movie? Is it enjoyable? Does it have good performances? And, you know, tick all those boxes. Yes, 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 it does. But when you see stuff like that and you kind of want it, especially with like a band, I would rather it just tell the true life story, in my opinion. You know, do we have a Naomi? She's froze in horror at my moustache, I think. It looks like we've lost Naomi. So I guess, Dave, you're in the comments right now. The Life of Brian. Can you just like message me right now if the stream's okay, if you can still hear me and everything, before I carry on? If anyone's still watching this thing. I'm going to carry on regardless. No pun intended, the show must go on. So yeah, more about the production of the film as well. The original director was going to be... Oh, okay, yeah, cool. It's still recording fine. That's all right. Bryan Singer was going to be the original director for this thing. Obviously, Bryan Singer directed the first couple of X-Men movies. And I think he's gone on record saying he shot about 2/3 of the movie. Oh, do we have Naomi back? Naomi's back. I thought I'd lost you.
Apologies for that. My internet went wacky.
Okay, no worries.
I'm really sorry about that.
I was just talking about the direction of it. So Bryan Singer was the original director on board for this thing. I think he shot about 2/3 of the movie, apparently, which seemed, after watching the movie, that feels like a lot. I think he definitely shot less than that, and maybe they've dressed it up. But according to Dexter Fletcher, who took over the job of directing, he came into a movie that was 2/3 complete, and he essentially just had to cobble together the final act of the movie. A lot of stuff with Bryan Singer, like apparently he just stopped turning up to set. There were lots of arguments with him and Rami Malek and some of the cast and the crew, and he just stopped coming to set. There are also other rumors of other reasons, which I'm not going to go into in this live stream, but I think maybe they would have contributed. I'm not really sure on the time frame, though. Certainly in more recent times, there's been some other dodgy goings on, perhaps, allegedly. I'm not going to get into any sticky situations with Bryan Singer, for the love of God. But Dexter Fletcher took over the role, director of Eddie the Eagle. And in my opinion, I mean, Bryan Singer gets sole directing credit at the end of this thing when the credits go up. But when you watch this movie, it is a Dexter Fletcher movie through and through. If you've seen Eddie the Eagle, you know the visual style of it. Very stylized, very digital, very glossy, a lot of CGI in there and intricate sort of digital camera movements. It's his movie. It absolutely. There's a reason that Rocket Man next year looks exactly like this, because it is a Dexter Fletcher movie. So I think they should have given it joint directing credit, but I think there's always usually a policy where they usually favor one director. But
sadly,
I don't know. It's just there's not really much else to. Oh, I'm getting a mad echo on your end, by the way, Naomi.
Oh, dang it.
Headphones, please.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Where do I even put that?
So yeah, I'm just reading the comments here. Life of Brian says the timeline right through the movie is all over the place with actual real life. Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to my point where if they've had to change things around to make a movie work, then that's fair enough. But if you are just telling the chronological events of a band, then I don't see why you need to mess around with the timeline, for example. You know, like I guess if you're going with a movie, so let's say like this movie, the focal point at the end is Live Aid. Say that is your third act set piece. That's where you want to end the movie. You want to end it on a high note. If you do that, then you're not telling the Freddie Mercury AIDS story, which is obviously huge. That is an integral part to him as a person, to the band, and his legacy. So you need to tell that story. But then if you do the Live Aid performance, you then need to go past that, and then you need to end the movie on an absolute downer with Freddie being diagnosed and, you know, his degradation and then eventually his death. And then you're going to have...
It would have been a great send-off if they had, like, the last scene of him, like, recording Show Must Go On, I feel.
Yeah.
That would have been a great last moment, and then, like, had shots of... The way I would have done it, he would be in the booth just singing with that take, and then there would be, like... it would be like the music video where they did actually put in different scenes of Freddie throughout his life, like the real Freddie.
Yeah.
And that would have been like a really powerful moment. And like just to say got it in one, and then have like the kind of like text thing of what happened afterwards. I did hear like reports originally when the film was like, when it had the first trailer, that it wouldn't dive into the AIDS diagnosis as much, with him living with AIDS for like his final few years. And also not really touching much on his sexuality, like not really going into the fact that he was gay and kind of just like glossing it over as it was, because most part Freddie Mercury is seen as an like one of the legendary LGBT icons.
No, it doesn't gloss over it at all. I think his sexuality is a huge focal point of the movie. Most of the drama of the movie comes from that alone, and it does go into the AIDS thing as well. So, for example, you've got Lucy Boynton playing Mary Austin, who's Mercury's girlfriend when, you know, he's starting his career out. He does have her as a girlfriend, and he does love her. He proposes to her in the movie. And again, like, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know how much of this was dialed up for a movie, how much more focus was given to this, how much more drama. But, you know, there are these moments where he's on tour and he's touring America, and like he's at a phone booth onto her and he's glancing at these men walking past. So there are the seeds of that are coming into it. And then as the movie goes on, you know, he does have, you know, homosexual relationships with people. Like, he absolutely does that. And then you see these parties, these lavish parties where, although you don't see it, it's implied that he's had these like mad orgies, like people say that he has a lover every night kind of thing. And Mary's character periodically comes back into it in the movie. She's kind of like his emotional rock. She's what's keeping him stable on the straight and narrow. And when she leaves, when she, you know, she senses something's not quite right with him, like he's not being very genuine when he says that he loves her, or there's some underlying thing there, he's making excuses, and he comes out to her. It's a very poignant moment of the film. And, you know, she says, like, I've kind of always known. And she goes to take her engagement ring off, and he's like, oh no, please keep it on. You promised me you'd always keep it on. You know, you are the love of my life. But then she has to move on. She finds a new partner. She tells him that she's pregnant later on in the film. And in those moments when she's away, that is when he does kind of segue more towards the drugs and the rock star lifestyle, essentially, and does completely fall apart when she's not there. So it definitely does go into all that stuff as well. And then it goes into the AIDS thing, and it almost becomes a bit of a music video in this part, but it is obviously very touching, even though they have shuffled the time around. But they play Who Wants to Live Forever, which is probably my favorite Queen song from the Highlander soundtrack. I was really hoping for a moment in the film where they talk about doing the music for Highlander, but unfortunately they don't. But
at least talking about when they did the theme for Flash.
The Flash, yeah. I was hoping for a moment where he's like on the piano or something, and he's like doing the dun 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 dun. But you don't even get that. There's no Flash Gordon or anything.
Dang it.
But when he's diagnosed, it's mostly done through no dialogue at all, which is very poignant. And, you know, I did find myself getting misty at that point, but then knowing that they have moved the timeline around, it does feel like it is very
played up for drama.
Played up for drama. I get it with the structure of a movie, though. As I said, like, if you want to end it with Live Aid, if you want to go out on a bang, you can't then go into, like, if you want to have like a happy film celebration of Queen, you then can't end it with the Aid story, because it's just going to completely, you know, it's going to...
I feel that would be the way that it's like done with like this kind of family friendly edge to it. That doesn't seem real to me. That doesn't seem like you're doing a genuine biopic. I know Brian May and Roger Taylor were meaning well. John Deacon's kind of like checked out of everything that Queen's done. But you don't get a proper biopic if you don't get all sides of a person. I think that's also the problem that I have. As much as I love the movie Saving Mr. Banks, they do go into some bits of like what Disney was, and like just had little hints of him like being a smoker. But at the end of the day, it's a Disney film about Disney. In the same way, this is a Queen film about Freddie. So it's going to have like this kind of glossy edge to it, even if they try to break the boundaries a little bit more. It's still going to have like this gleaming shine to it. And it's, to me, it seems disingenuous.
Yeah, it definitely is in some regards. But as I said, I still enjoyed the movie. Speaking of Freddie Mercury, though, need to talk about performances now. Rami Malek absolutely disappears into the role of Freddie Mercury. He is fantastic in this movie. And I've been looking at a lot of reception. The movie itself is getting very average critic scores. I think it's currently on a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, you know, is fairly middle of the road. I'd probably give it more than that, in all honesty. But one thing that is being praised is Rami Malek. And what I enjoyed as well is that, you know, he does little bits of singing in the film, but he doesn't do all the singing. They get audio tracks of actually Freddie Mercury, and he lip syncs to a lot of it. And there's another guy as well who's on stage for one of the Queen. I don't know if it's We Will Rock You or some kind of Queen stage show that's touring around.
Oh, Adam Lambert.
Not Adam Lambert, it's someone else. I'm trying,
because he's the one that's currently with Queen as they're doing their now tours. Again, without Roger Deacon, like I said, he checked out. Which I've heard, like, I think I've read the BBC review of it, that like he's just kind of there and doesn't really say much, which is weird.
But no, I'm desperately trying to find this guy. I can't find it. But anyway, the point is that Rami Malek in the film, like, he does some of his own singing, but they use a lot of actual audio from Freddie Mercury. And I was really worried going into this movie thinking that, you know, it must be so hard as an actor to be given this role. And apparently I was reading that Rami Malek wasn't even a Queen fan. Like, he didn't know much about them beforehand. And in preparation for the film, obviously he had to watch loads of performances. He had to have a movement coach. He had to have a vocal coach and everything like that. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to be able to fully replicate Freddie Mercury any way you slice it, because that, you know, to act, to move, to sing like that, that is a huge order for an actor. And he knew that. And he says that there were a lot of moments when he was performing and preparing for the character where he thought it was going to be a lost cause, like he wasn't going to be able to do it justice. But I appreciate the movie for, you know, maybe understanding his vocal limitations and actually putting Freddie Mercury in there. They blend it seamlessly. It works. And I'm sick to death of these musical films that usually come out. And I'm going to Beauty and the Beast with this one, where you get Emma Watson, and the first thing you hear
something sweet and almost kind.
Yeah, there's no, she can't sing. They've auto-tuned her to hell. There's no power, there's no passion, there's no vocal talent there, when they could have easily...
My reaction to when you first heard her singing in the trailer, it was like, oh, this is cute. Ooh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I remember sitting in that movie, like, I loved the trailer for it. I was so excited for it. And as soon as she opened her mouth, I was like, please stop, please stop, please stop singing, please stop talking.
No, please, no.
Yeah, so I'm very glad that they avoided that, because, I mean, if they actually had Rami Malek singing all this stuff, it wouldn't sound authentic. It absolutely wouldn't.
He would have had the range for it, because Freddie Mercury's voice is so iconic. It's like if someone did a biopic of Annie Lennox from Eurythmics. It's a very different kind of voice that has a very big range. So you're going to have to use the actual person's vocals if you want to do it justice, rather than make your own, because it's not gonna, you're gonna have like every internet troll being like, doesn't sound like it.
And I think that with this movie, if they'd have done everything as a lip sync, it would have been easily noticeable. But because they blended it well, they had Rami Malek doing a few little bits. They had this other guy, I can't remember who performs as Freddie Mercury on one of the stage shows. You had him injecting his vocals into it, and then you also had the actual vocal track off Freddie Mercury. It blends so seamlessly well, and it works. I think that if you had have had Rami Malek acting and sing it all, I don't think that his performance would be as praised as it is. And I think the film would have definitely faltered in there because essentially the music is at the forefront of the film. Other performances in the film, I don't know the actors all that much, but Dave in the comments mentioned this, Life of Brian, that the guy playing Brian May, it looks like they have actually gone back in time, taken Brian May, brought him to 2018 and made this movie. He is the spitting image of a young Brian May.
I did look up at some of the previous actors who were Queen. Not much on the guy who plays Brian May. The guy who plays Roger Taylor, he was actually in EastEnders and has done a few other things quite well known, and is now obviously Roger Taylor. And then John Deacon, I told Chris this, he didn't know this. John Deacon is the little kid from Jurassic Park, like the little boy.
Yeah, and I think he was, this blew my mind when I found this out. I think he was in Social Network as well.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same guy, but like, I didn't clock it. I knew I recognized him, but I just couldn't place it. And another performer I want to talk about in this film, another actor in a supporting role as Queen's second manager, Aidan Gillen, Littlefinger himself. Game of Thrones spoiler here for season 7, but I was absolutely distraught when Littlefinger was killed. He didn't deserve that end.
Of you showing off your fantastic editing skills.
Thank you. Yeah. But I was absolutely gutted. I thought he was going to go the distance in Game of Thrones, but every role I see him in now, he's always going to be Littlefinger to me. And he even has the same voice in this, which was hilarious. Mike Myers as well. My God, I haven't seen Mike Myers since The Love Guru. Or maybe Inglourious Basterds.
Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
Please go for that instead.
But he's very good like this. Like, he'll pick these random projects as like a completely made up character with like a different voice, and he's barely recognizable, but he's fantastic as this as the EMI executive, is this really kind of sleazy guy where Queen
EMI are kind of sleazy as a label anyway, just saying.
Yeah, and it's the classic sort of like studio meddling kind of thing, like the record labels where Queen go to them and they say, like, you know, they play Bohemian Rhapsody to him and he's like, it's 6 minutes long, like it's way too long. Radio play is about 3 minutes, when no radio will play a 6 minute song. What's all this Scaramouche thing? Like, it's just absolute nonsense. There's no chorus, and he's pushing for, I forget which song it is that he wants to push to be the single, and the band are like, you know, it's going to be Bohemian Rhapsody or we're going to walk away. Essentially, he plays that kind of character where he's like, this is the formula, we need to stick to the formula, this is what works. And then Freddie Mercury and the band are trying to go against the grain with that. So there are really good moments in the film, and there are some laugh out loud moments. Rami Malek's wit, channeling Freddie Mercury's wit, and his little quips and things he says is absolutely on point.
Yeah, I still keep remembering like this little moment that they had when they were recording News of the World, because it was 1977 when that was being recorded and released, and they shared a studio space with Sex Pistols, and Sid Vicious was like bringing just peeked in and was like, you're still bringing ballet to the masses then? And Freddie Mercury just like turned around and is like, my dear Simon Vicious, we are trying to.
It's sorry, like, just replying to some comments if you want to continue a bit, just why.
Yeah, like I would have really loved to, like, I haven't seen it yet, so this is still just going off of what I've read in reviews and also from what Chris has been saying. But I know from the trailers they do go into like tiny bits of the recording process, but even having things like that, just like a random like pop up of Sid Vicious for that kind of moment,
yeah,
I think would have been really great to show like the fantastic character that Freddie Mercury was. There's a fantastic clip of Freddie Mercury that's just laughing in an interview, and I keep thinking of that whenever I just see like kind of modern music, like for example Post Malone claiming he's a rock star even though he's done rap.
Yeah.
Sure, just that kind of laughter I see with it, and you know, there should have been like that kind of moment for it. I don't know.
There's so many moments.
I'm getting really dark. I need to I'm just gonna put on the light 1 sec.
Oh wow, you're like blending into that.
I mean, darkness, but not that much.
I was born in it, molded by it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many moments from Freddie Mercury's life that they could have put in this movie, but you'd be tanking the movie to about 3 or 4 hours if you put everything in. Like, it's just not doable.
Yeah, we don't need to go to Cleopatra level stage.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we need like a prelude, an overture, an intermission. Dave's just put in the comments that there's the single that Mike Myers' character was pushing for, as opposed to Bohemian Rhapsody, the one he was pushing was "I'm in Love with My Car," which is much derided throughout the movie and is joked about by every other member of the band. And there's also like an in-joke to Wayne's World in there as well. He says something like, "Who in their right mind is going to headbang to Bohemian Rhapsody?" Which, is a nice...
They just had to get that in there.
That. He was like, I will do your role as long as I can draw reference to Wayne's World.
And now people are going to go watch Wayne's World now.
Yes. I'm trying to think what else I can talk
Actually,
about.
I reviewed an EP the other day that had a reference to Wayne's World. Like, she fought for her right to party on like Wayne and Garth. Faded by Bronny, if you want to check it out.
We've got Anais in the comments as well that says, "My favorite scene is the Live Aid performance. It's very extraordinary and emotional for me." Definitely, that is, apart from some like little character moments in the film, that is probably my favorite scene. It looks like it was painstakingly recreated. They played the entire set. I didn't know. I mean, this is where I'm going to be like shot down in flames as like a fan of Queen or like music in general. I actually have never seen the entire Live Aid performance, the entire gig, which breaks my heart. I've obviously seen clips from it, and I know the layout, I know some of the songs they did and everything like that, but no, in terms of the staging, in terms of the movements, I wasn't even aware that each band member was only given 20 minutes. I thought, they were all given like, and 45 minute to an hour set or something like that. So you do see the full 20 minutes and it goes all the way through it. I was hoping that they, because they start off, they strike up with Bohemian Rhapsody. I thought, are they just going to play this and then it's going to cut off? They then segue into Radio Gaga and they continue that. And I thought, well, they're 2 songs deep into it now, in for a penny, in for a pound. They may as well just play like the entire 20-minute set, and they end the movie with that. And I think that was absolutely the perfect choice to do that. Chella S in the comments now. I didn't see it yet, but I saw many documentaries and I can't wait. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you're in it, if you watch the documentaries, then obviously you're going to get the real life story. Whereas this is definitely a more truncated, glossed over, shuffled around version, but with Queen hype and Freddie Mercury hype, and with the music behind it, which is still... I
mean, as you said, Brian May and Roger Taylor, they were pushing for family friendly, and family friendly is kind of the middle ground they essentially gone to. I mean, even though it's a 12A, it's more focused on the kind of just the praise and appreciation for Queen. It wasn't bad. It's just weird angle to take your biopic.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like in a few years there will be another Freddie Mercury biopic, but kind of like taking a different angle to it, probably bringing that kind of edgy tone to it.
See, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get that.
It might even get the absolute like hatred from Brian May and Roger Taylor, but who knows?
But I think they have final say. I honestly, by what it sounds like they have a final say. Maybe, I mean, obviously they have ownership of the brand and everything like that, and the band name. Like, they're going to have an input regardless. And I think that's why, as long as, this is going to sound morbid, as long as Brian May's alive, I don't think we're going to get that darker version.
Well, here's the thing. One of my favorite movies is the documentary of Amy Winehouse, just Amy. And originally, like, the estates and everything were all for it, but once it was released, they were like against it because of how they thought it was portrayed. But the way that I see it, it was just very raw and honest with it, and it went on to win Best Documentary at the Oscars. So, I mean, I'd rather go for a real take at a real person rather than just romanticizing it for the sake of other people.
Just other comments. We've got Dave's put, bad choice, Wembley, bad CGI. And this is what goes back to Dexter Fletcher for me. And I think he's very much tied to, oh God, what's the name of the director of Kick-Ass and Kingsman?
Matthew Vaughn.
Matthew Vaughn, yeah. So I think that Dexter Fletcher, I think he even like appeared in a cameo in Kick-Ass as one of the henchmen. So I think he's very definitely tied to that, because I remember when Eddie the Eagle came out, I thought it was a Matthew Vaughn movie. It looks exactly, in terms of style, in terms of how the CGI is. The CGI isn't great in Matthew Vaughn's movies, but he adds it in a way where it looks completely stylized and almost comic booky, I guess. I don't know if that's the right terminology to use for it. And I kind of got that impression with this movie as well. It does have that very digital sheen that Dexter Fletcher usually uses in his movies. So some of the crowd sequences are pretty bad. When the camera pans over the audience, the crowd of Wembley, you can see they've like cut and paste certain people again and again, and you can see them doing this. It's like a video game, you know, when you play like an old video game, and if there's like a big crowd, you can pick out the sprites that they've copied. Kind of felt a little bit like that, but when you're focusing on Freddie Mercury on stage and performance, and it only occasionally cuts to the crowd, you know, you kind of let it slide a little bit that way. I've replied to Chella, but in the comments she's put, is IMAX a recommendation to watch it? I wouldn't say you need to see this on IMAX, apart from like the big Wembley Live Aid performance at the end, and maybe some of the musical numbers throughout the movie. With a bigger screen, you're obviously going to have better sound. It's going to be louder. It's going to make you feel like you're actually there when you see that huge camera pan over the crowd. But then you're going to start picking cut and pasted CGI sprites out, and then it's the whole immersion's going to completely crumble for you after that. Chella's put, did you talk about the soundtrack? I saw that there are a couple of songs revisited. There are a lot of songs revisited. I guess they pretty much do go through all of Queen's major hits. Some are included in the credits, even if they don't feature in the main movie. Some are added into the movie as more background, as a kind of music video thing, whether it's a montage when it's covering a few, you know, weeks and months of recording, or maybe it's, you know, them going on tour, for example. And it plays like a collection, almost like a medley of their songs as it goes through. And then, as I said, like when he is diagnosed with AIDS, it does play Who Wants to Live Forever, and that's your more elongated song where, you know, it really lets the emotion sink in with that song in the backing, more like a music video. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can talk about this movie. What is very interesting, there is this current trend of music movies. So like Dexter Fletcher himself next year is directing Rocket Man, which almost looks exactly the same as this, and obviously it makes sense because he jumped on for it. But are we getting like a cinematic universe now of like homosexual British rock bands, rock personalities?
I don't know, but if they do, we probably will get a Judas Priest one soon. Just saying.
Yeah, Judas Priest one will get George Michael. I can absolutely see them doing a George Michael film. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Like, I was trying to think about this. I was thinking of what other musicians could they do and add to this universe if Dexter Fletcher is going to keep doing them.
I'm intrigued, but at the same time, like I said, when I first saw the trailers for Bohemian Rhapsody, I am scared, because these are people that not only mean a lot to me, but mean a lot to like loads of people, and like have this amount of like love and respect, especially since like even people I didn't expect to love Elton John, like beauty vlogger Jeffree Star, they went to see one of his shows and they were absolutely loving it. So to like have a person and then a film's version of a person freaks me out.
And I'm wondering if they've done the same with the Elton John movie as well. I mean, I haven't read loads into it yet because obviously Rocket Man doesn't come out till next year. But I've heard that originally Tom Hardy was signed on for like a good while to play Elton John in those movies. And I kept thinking, like, I really can't picture Tom Hardy playing him. And now we've got Taron Egerton, who's obviously worked with Dexter Fletcher before when he worked with him on Eddie the Eagle. And it looks a lot like this, more family friendly, more toned down. So I don't know if this is a thing with musicians where they don't want, you know, I mean, they've got a reputation to uphold. They've got a legacy. And maybe these films, if they do tell the true story and, you know, warts and all, and they show all the debauchery and everything like that, maybe that would paint them in a different regard, and maybe people would view them differently. So,
but then again, they would be, I'd rather that they be viewed as human, because at the end of the day, they're just humans doing what they love, just playing music. I mean, I'd be really sad if they like did like in 50 years time that they did a Greta Van Fleet biopic and they just glossed over and just like said, oh yeah, they immediately became stars and they immediately were immersed in this world. Because I've actually chatted with them. They're not like that. They are extremely humble and they've worked their socks off for like years and years, even before like Highway Tune became such a big song.
Yeah.
So I'd rather that they show people being human and just like with the struggles that they've had to try and become a musician, rather than just this glitz, glam, music sensation thing. Because to me, that's not human. That's not real.
It's what you, it depends what you want from a movie. If you want, and this, I guess this is my overall opinions on Bohemian Rhapsody, because I am very conflicted on this movie, although I did have a good time at it. If you want just that, if you want to experience the music and have that escapism where it almost feels like you're at a concert, it is hyping up your favorite band potentially. If you do, you know, if you do love Queen, you're going to hear the music, you're going to get swept up into it, and you're going to have a really good time with it. And it's going to hit like vaguely beats from, you know, the story of the band members' lives. If you want a real life story, you're not getting it here. And I think if you do want that, you're much better, you know, sitting at home. I think there's plenty out there. Watch a Queen documentary, watch any documentary you can on Freddie Mercury.
Or even better, just listen to the discography.
Yeah, or just grab a hold of the discography and just go through that. Absolutely. It ultimately depends what you want from a movie. To me, I went into this with a fairly negative attitude. I wasn't expected to be wowed by this and was expecting to come out of it fairly miserable, like I do with most movies. But no, I did have a very good time. I'd be lying if I said, you know, I didn't enjoy it. But then part of me is thinking, well, it would have been great if we had have had a serious take. And I feel like I'm repeating myself with that alone, but that is ultimately where my opinion comes down to. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've pretty much said everything I can on Bohemian Rhapsody, unless you've got anything else you want to ask. Or
well, again, reiterating that I haven't seen it, I'm still actually open to try and see it. I'm trying to keep an open mind as much as possible, even despite other reviews, especially with the really negative one from Guardian. Wow. But, I mean, you have to keep an open mind for these things and really think what you want to think. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be your experience as compared to someone else. I mean, yesterday afternoon I was pretty much crying because I listened to Greta Van Fleet's debut album for the first time, even though Pitchfork gave it a 1.6 out of 10. You know, it's not going to be the same for everybody, and Pitchfork and Guardian could be as pretentious as they want to be, but I'm still wanting to see it. I'm still wanting to have my own opinion on it. And you know what? Everyone can have their own opinion on something that they love. Yes, DC fanboys, listen to this. Everyone who's commented on my Aquaman reaction video, listen to what Naomi's just said, because they are wise words. See, this is why I am a music journalist. I say these kind of things. But yeah, no, I think I've pretty much said everything I can on this movie. Already this movie is very divisive. I know that the newspaper and star ratings aren't usually the way to go, but some reviews have been giving it 2 stars out of 5. Some have been giving it 5 out of 5. So I think your best option, and it kind of sounds like a bit of a cop-out, go and see the movie for yourself and, you know, come up with your own opinion on it. It ultimately depends what you want from the movie, as I said. So that'll do it for my review on Bohemian Rhapsody. Be sure to comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this movie if you have seen it. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? Would you have preferred a more serious take? And a lot of you in the comments are already doing this already, but what suggestions for other music movies would you want to see? So we've got Rocket Man next year with Elton John. We've had people saying that they'd love to see an Elvis Presley movie. I'm going to throw David Bowie out there as well. I think that would be very good. It'd be very interesting to see who they would cast as David Bowie, because he is such a, you know, a unique individual in terms of just how he looks. But yeah, so get some of those recommendations going in the comments as well. What is coming out on the channel? So tomorrow I at MCM London Comic Con, so I will be unavailable tomorrow. I will be on a new episode of Film Club at some point. I have a few trailer reactions to do as well. The latest trailer went up for How to Train Your Dragon, and there's also a latest Conjuring movie that's coming out, The Curse of La Lorna, I think it's called, which I need to do a reaction for. And on Wednesday, and I mean, if you want to be involved in it, Naomi, that'd be great. I'm more than happy to.
We are bringing back Battle of the Brackets. Finally, we have got it together, and we've got one arranged for Halloween night, and it is going to be a Halloween special. We haven't done a Halloween special on our channel since we've started, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me, because Halloween is the best day of the calendar year.
It's the one night of the year where you get to be whatever you want and no one can say anything.
Exactly, and we will have costumes.
Yes.
Put that out there. We don't exactly know what we're arguing yet. We've got 3 possible ideas, but now that we have 4 fighters, expect to see a vote up this weekend where you can vote on what you want to see us argue about. I guess I can say what the 3 are now in case anyone wants to comment. We're either going to be arguing best horror movie mascot, or best horror movie scene. Those are the 3 possible, so get commenting which one you'd like to see us argue, and that will be going live next Wednesday, so look out for that. Dates and times will be on our social media. You can find links to those in the description down below. We've got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you very much, Naomi, for jumping on with me today. I always appreciate it. I'm kind of awful on my own, so I like having someone to bounce off and have a conversation with, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, that'll do it for our video for today. And until the next one, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.